Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Evolve to Win show. Last week, I was doing the closing keynote session for a national sales conference, and I shared one of the tactics or systems that I use for delegation. So this episode is called Why Delegation Doesn't Work. And the answer is delegation usually doesn't work because the person who should be delegating has probably done a couple of things that just aren't working. So I want to talk about if you are in a situation where you know you've got some things on your plate that you just shouldn't be doing, which by the way is most of us, right? We've got to really take a look first at what needs to be delegated. So when you think about what needs to be delegated, you're going to look at a couple of different things. First of all, you need to look at the level of importance of the task, right? That's going to be really critical. Most people struggle in general with prioritizing and really determining which tasks they should be focused on. So really getting clarity on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. The most successful people are really, really good at knowing what to say no to and then saying no, right? That's the second piece of it. So if you haven't already done this exercise, or if you haven't done this exercise recently, it would be so valuable to just sit down with a piece of paper and make a list of the things that you shouldn't be doing. Now, how can you tell whether you shouldn't be doing something? Well, a lot of that has to do with the skill level required for the task. If you have tasks that really are not requiring a lot of skill, and or maybe they don't have a high level of importance to the organization, then these are tasks that really need to be offloaded, right? So that's one way to look at it. The other thing is, if you absolutely hate doing this task, then that's something that really is taking your energy. You should find a way to get that off your plate, right? If it's not absolutely required to be done by you, how do you take that off your plate and give it to someone else who might actually love doing that task? All right, so the first part is really figuring out what to say no to. And quite honestly, that's where most people get stopped, is taking the time to analyze and figuring out, what do I need to take off my plate? So what I recommend is you find at least one thing that you know needs to be delegated. Now, the second thing that holds people back from delegating is the mindset around delegation. So tell me if you've ever done this before. You think about the task that needs to get off your plate and you struggle with either who to give it to, or you struggle with the idea that, you know what, it's going to take me so much time to give this task away to someone else. And then I'm going to have to train them and teach them how to do it. And they're probably not going to get it right. And so I'm going to have to just do it myself anyway. So that's the story that we usually say to ourselves, because we've probably had that type of experience in the past. We've tried to give something up before and it hasn't worked. And then it took a lot more time. So we think we're being more efficient by delegating. But I want you to really, really challenge yourself on that one. So are you truly being more efficient by hanging on to things that you shouldn't be doing? I'm going to show you a 4-part system that you can use for delegation that is pretty much foolproof, right? It will work. And the other thing is, it shouldn't take any more time, because if you were going to do the task anyway, the system I'm going to teach you is going to be showing you how to do the task and have someone else participate. So here's how it goes. There is this 4-part system. Starts off with, first of obviously you find out the person who you're going to delegate to. That's a given. So you're looking for someone who has the skill set or the aptitude at least to take on the skill. And obviously the more complex the skill, the more you've got to get involved in this system. All right, step number 1 is this. I have the task that I know that I'm going to delegate. So I find the person I'm delegating to, and step number 1 is called I do, you watch. And so as I'm doing the task, look, you would have done it anyway. Now you're just bringing this person in strictly as an observer, okay? They're observing you do the task. You may be kind of talking them through it as you're doing it, if that's necessary, or you might just be doing the task and they're observing. But they're doing something really, really important. They're observing and they're documenting. So they're actually writing down the step-by-step of what they observe you do. And so they have actually, by the time you're done with the task, they have a step-by-step sort of system of what they saw you do. Now, it's a great idea, especially if it's a complex task, to take a look at what they wrote down and fill in a couple of blanks. So take a look at what they've written down. First of all, did they get it right? Now, it doesn't have to be in a super lot of detail, but just make sure that they have the important details captured. And there may be a point in time where you might need to tell them why you did what you did. Because remember, sometimes it's just the why that's missing behind the scenes. So people might do it differently or cut corners if they don't understand that part. So as you review their documentation, just make sure it's correct. It doesn't need to be completely detailed at this stage. We just need at least a high enough level where it's correct. And maybe there are aspects where you need to fill in some blanks and help them understand why. Okay. So that's the end of step one. Step one is I do, you watch, and document. Now we move on to step two. Step two is I do, you help, and you update your document. Okay, so the person needs to be with you again this second time around. They need to bring their document, which means they need to know where this exists, and they bring it with them. And as you're going through, you have to think about what are a couple of things that I could actually have them do as part of this task. Okay, so you're doing it, they're helping, they're updating. Again, you're going to take a look at their document, make sure that whatever they've updated is correct, and find out if they have any questions and fill in the blanks on the why. It shouldn't take that much more time. You were going to do it anyway, right? All right, now we're on to step three. Step three is you do, I help, and you update your document. So again, they have to bring their document with them. They are now responsible for doing the task, and you are going to be assisting them. This is the opportunity to kind of let them go. And if they can go and do it without your help, fantastic. But you are there to help and guide and assist along the way. Step four, you've probably already guessed it, is you do, I watch. Now, I promise you this is going to be the hardest one for you, especially if you're one of those people who kind of likes to get things done perfect, or if you like to have control. This is going to be the one where you're tempted to jump in and help, or even jump in and do. And I really want you to hold yourself back as much as possible on that. Now, if the task is so complex and you really recognize they're not ready, you may have to go back and do another step three. But I want you to consider that during this step four, if they have a complete enough document, you let them go and you let them do. And if they ask you a question that's actually answered in their document, you ask it right back to them and have them refer to your document. So let's just say they are saying, oh, I'm not sure whether I should do X or Y right now. What I would do is say, okay, let's check your document. What do you think is the right next step? So this is now you're turning more into a coaching leader on this part of the delegation. Rather than just telling them the answer, you're going to ask them. And if they say, well, I don't know what I should do, then you bring them back and say, okay, well, when we did this last time, what did you observe? So the more that you can ask them questions through this program, the more you're building their confidence. This is the biggest distinction. Yes, it would be faster for you to just tell them, but it's so much more beneficial if instead you ask them, because this is the critical point too, where they're trying to figure out if they have their own belief that they can do this. We're helping them to gain the confidence by asking them the question. If they get the answer wrong, see if you can ask it again another way and give them the chance to get the right answer instead of just telling them what to do or how to do it. Again, if you really get to the point you understand that they're just not ready, go back and tell them you want to do step 3 again, and then give them another shot at step 4. All right, so to recap, step 1 is I do, you watch and document. Step 2 is I do, you help and update your document. Step 3 is you do, I help, and of course we update and check that document. And then step 4 is you do and I watch. And I do everything in my power not to jump in and fix it and or make it better or make it perfect. So one of the things that we tend to do when giving up a very important task or project is we want someone else to do it just the way we do it. And yet this person may have a new or different or unique way of doing certain aspects of it that are still good enough. So I want you to really, really watch yourself on trying to add too much value. If they are good enough and maybe not in your mind perfect, but you keep correcting them to try to make it perfect, what's the impact of that? So a lot of times the impact can be that someone is less likely to actually want to step in and do the task if you're constantly updating them, correcting them, giving them different ways of doing it, and or just having them feel like they can't do it by themselves. All right. So I hope that this quick session on delegation has been helpful for you. I went into a little bit more detail than I did when I was at that closing session. So for those of you who were at the National Sales Conference and you heard the quick 4 steps on delegation, I'd also be really interested in hearing, did you use this and how did it work? So please feel free to give me any comments in the comment section. Have you used it? Is it working? Are you having any challenges with it? Do you have any questions about this delegation exercise? And by the way, if you are someone who is masterful at delegating, are you already using this system? Right? So if you're using the system and you know it works, please share so that people get that confidence to start using the system. If you know somebody else in your world who really, really could benefit from hearing this message, please do share it with them. So thanks for tuning in for the Evolve to Win show. And until next time, you can always find this podcast. We're doing this now on LinkedIn Live. So if you want to see it on video, you can go to LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can download the Evolve to Win podcast on your favorite podcast app. Have an awesome day.